It's hard to believe we've gathered here again so soon, and yet there is great comfort in imagining Mom and Dad together in heaven. The 5 of us kids would like to take a few minutes to share some thoughts and memories about our dad. For Dad, faith and family were everything. As the oldest, one of my strongest memories is standing in the entryway of our house about to walk out to a high school party or football game and having my dad call me back to say, "Now, remember who you are and who you represent." And I knew what that meant, family. To Dad, it wasn't just his immediate family, but it was his extended family too. He never forgot where he came from, and he was extremely proud of his mom and dad and siblings, and especially proud of how they overcame extreme adversity. It made them who they were, and it made them such a close family. Over the years, watching Dad embrace each of our spouses into our family, and eventually his sweet 16 grandchildren, was a joy to witness. He would tear up telling all those stories about his mom and dad and siblings to his grandchildren, wanting to preserve the memories and legacy, and always emphasizing the importance of love and family and friends who had become like family. I think my dad was the most generous person I've ever known, not just in his big donations, but in the behind-the-scenes contributions that he and my mom kept to themselves, and we only found out about later because someone who was touched would tell us. In the early days, he would have us set an extra place setting at the table for holidays and special dinners, and said it represented the person who didn't have a place to go that night. I also have many memories of Dad seeking out the busboy at a restaurant, probably because he made him fill his iced tea glass about 10 times, but just to make sure he could also give him a tip, and he would know his whole life story by the time we left. As it has been said, my dad never met a stranger, just a friend he hadn't made yet, and it was so true. Dad, thank you for being a wonderful father. I am so grateful for the legacy you leave behind by all the people you've touched. You will forever be missed. Give Mom a hug.
They say home is where the heart is. Mom once told me a sweet story about the days following my birth. Very shortly after I was born, she required a surgery, which meant that we would stay in the hospital for about 10 days. Mom was moved to the surgical floor, and I remained in the nursery with the other newborn babies. Dad would come to visit every day to spend time holding me while Mom could not. Before starting Shamrock Supply, Dad was a salesman for Rigid Tool Company. With the Western States as his territory, he would be on the road for several days a week. Mom would tell us kids when it was time to wait and watch for the big red van to come rolling down the road that led to our house. We all jumped for joy and ran to the front door to greet him with cheers of, "Yay, Daddy's home." When Dad married Mom and moved to California, he told her parents that he would always bring Mom home to visit. Dad made good on that promise. Mom went home to Ohio every year for as long as she was able to travel. During many summers, we drove the family van pulling a pop-up trailer, and we zigged and zagged across the country touring national parks and visiting extended family along the way. Long hours on the road gave us countless funny stories and cherished memories. It also bonded us firmly to our extended O'Connor, O'Donnell, and Donahue family. 15 years ago, my husband Todd took a head coaching job on the North Shore of Boston, Massachusetts. We packed up and moved with our 3 little girls across the country. We were far, far from home. Thankfully, our Murphy family was able to travel to Grandma and Grandpa's every summer for vacation and celebrate every Christmas. What really bridged the miles, though, was Mom and Dad coming to visit us. They made themselves at home and quickly got in the groove of our busy family life. Dad loved to pick the kids up from school and stop for ice cream on a sunny day. He would often stop downtown at the hardware store to pick up some widgets he needed for a home repair project that he was working on. Dad's favorite season to visit New England was definitely the fall, but it wasn't to see the changing leaves. For Dad, it was all about the basketball season. He would plan his trip so he could catch as many of the Gordon men's basketball games as possible. He was their biggest fan. The last 7 months without Mom were not easy. Dad kept busy with a robust social schedule that worked around his bi-weekly appointments at the infusion center. He even took a trip to Ohio and Boston in the springtime. For the last time, Dad visited his beloved Ohio and spent time with his and Mom's siblings and their families. He got together with his Elyria Catholic classmates and his Dayton buddies. His heart was so full. Dad could often be heard telling people how very blessed he had been. He was bursting with gratitude for the wonderful life that he had lived. When his body began to react poorly to the transfusions, with the help of his amazing medical team, he transitioned to hospice care. His heart's desire was to leave the hospital and go home to the place where he had made 55 years worth of memories. I am eternally grateful that I was there with my siblings to accompany our dad during the last 10 days of his life. With the blessing of a peaceful death, Dad's lifelong prayers were answered. Dad has gone home to our Savior and to be with Mom and our many loved ones. I look forward to the day when we're all reunited again, because home is truly where the heart is.
I feel privileged to have been close with my dad for 3 of his favorite passions: Shamrock, golf, and football. My parents sacrificed tremendously, especially in the early days, to get Shamrock off the ground. My dad was insistent on not stealing customers from distributors he called on while in his previous job, so Shamrock started with no customers. It didn't take long before he solved that problem by going out and meeting with anyone who'd let him in the door. I believe my dad was blessed with an abnormally high level of curiosity that served him well in business. He wanted to know how things operated and how Shamrock could make it better. While he was adept at meeting with executives for lunch or golf, he loved being on the plant floor with people who got their hands dirty every day using the tools we sell. He arranged countless pizza and taco lunches for those he believed were the true customers who didn't get the recognition they deserved. Over the 50 years, I believe my dad got to personally know more than 1,000 workers, and with his gifted memory, he always remembered their names and something unique about them: a hobby, a kid's sport, or a challenge they were going through. He was also compassionate with others he felt were at the core of the workforce. In fact, he made it a habit every time he went to a restaurant to slide the busboy a 5 as they filled up his iced tea or cleared the dishes. To be prepared, he used to go to the bank every month to buy a stack of $5 bills. I used to chuckle wondering what the teller must have thought of this friendly, elderly gentleman with his walking stick. What was he doing with all those $5 bills? Another passion was golf. I played countless rounds with my dad and enjoyed every minute. We played across Ireland a few times where he would lose sight of the match, finding more joy talking with the caddies. But by far my favorite memory was at Mission's course on number 13, a par 3. We were playing with our business banker friend John Martyr. As we approached the tee box, my dad mentioned that it was his dad's birthday, who had passed away many years ago, saying he was a wonderful man who he wished we would have met. When the green cleared, my dad whacked a 5-wood out to the right, heading towards the trap, but the ball hit a mound and veered left onto the green, proceeded to roll 100 feet across to the corner and dropped in the cup. We all cheered with excitement, but what I remember most was my dad's tears as he said, "My dad did that for me," and it meant so much to him. Football was a passion for my dad, having played since 5th grade. He was a tough, hard-nosed player who won accolades for his grit at Elyria Catholic and the University of Dayton, where he was known as Mr. 1000%. As a football dad, he was 1,000% behind me as well, attending every game I played, home and away. At Akron's away games, he'd get a large hotel room, fill the tub with beer, buy food from a locally owned restaurant, and invite all the parents and assistant coaches in for a party the night before the game. At one point, Coach Faust said that he thought the assistant coaches might have been hungover. Maybe that's why we lost so many games. For most of my life, my dad was a devoted Notre Dame fan, but over the years he had become frustrated with coaching changes and philosophies. To all our astonishment, he urged Killian to go play football at USC, Notre Dame's arch rival, and became his biggest fan. In many ways, I believe the qualities needed in football shaped my dad's life all the way to the end. On September 7th, he passed away in his recliner, wearing Killian's jersey an hour before kickoff. Fight on, Dad. You led an amazing life.
One of the earliest and definitely sweetest memories of my dad is seeing him kneel gently by the side of his bed for his nightly prayers. He would close his eyes as he folded his hands and leaned slightly over the bed. As he prayed silently, I could see the St. Joseph medal he always wore beneath his shirt fall forward and begin dangling around his neck like a pendulum, as if swaying in time to the rhythm of his prayers. Witnessing his faithfulness planted seeds in the depths of my heart. I also admired his deep devotion to the Blessed Mother and how often he relied on her intercession as he prayed the rosary. I remember he had a beautiful deep green Irish Connemara marble rosary, and after he finally stopped smoking in the 80s, thank you, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, it had a permanent spot in the ashtray in his car. I loved to run my fingers over the large square beads, which were a very unique style of rosary. It made me smile because I knew how much my dad loved his Irish heritage. I was pretty certain we had other nationality in our blood. Oh, but Dad would never admit to that. He was a proud Irishman through and through. He had the gift of gab, no need to kiss the Blarney Stone for him, as he could talk with absolutely anyone. He also knew how to show great hospitality, as was seen in his annual St. Patrick's Day parties, where all were welcome and the Irish coffee and beer were always flowing. He even had a sign above the entry to his home, which is an Irish expression, Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. He truly loved to open his home and heart to everyone. I will always remember my dad's beautiful smiling eyes. In fact, they are the reason why I chose to dance with my dad at the father-daughter dance at my wedding, to When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. The words to the song are the perfect way I want to remember him on this day of farewell. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like the morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away. Love you, Dad.
When I was a little girl, my dad and I had a unique relationship. Truth be told, we always have. You see, the year I was born, so was Shamrock. This meant my dad was working crazy long hours. He'd often leave before I was awake and wouldn't return until very late. But my mom had a solution for that. She would just let me fall asleep on the couch until he arrived. So excited to see him, I would wake up and run to the kitchen to grab our favorite hors d'oeuvre, sardines and saltines. Yes, you heard me right, it was our favorite. For the record, you couldn't pay me to eat a sardine now. For the last 30 years, I've had the privilege of working alongside my dad, but truly it feels like my tenure started 50 years ago. I remember when I was 3 or 4, I would get up at 4 in the morning just to sit and watch cartoons next to him while he signed checks. And as the years went on, it turned into riding along on special deliveries to places like San Onofre, or going with him to purchase Shamrock's very first stake bed truck, which he affectionately named Miss Megan. But it really wasn't until I started working at Shamrock that I began to appreciate how dedicated, passionate, and hardworking my dad really was, and just how much he truly loved people. I remember when I was about 8 or 9, we were on one of our family road trips. My dad and I were standing on the boardwalk of the Jersey Shore when my dad sparked a conversation with an older gentleman standing next to him. A few minutes passed, and all of a sudden my dad is giving this man his beloved Irish cap, and in turn the man gave him his hat. They shook hands and we headed back to the car. This was long before the days of eye wipes and olive oil. So confused and a little appalled, I said, "Dad, you don't even know that man. You gave a complete stranger your favorite hat." To which he quickly replied, "There's no such thing as strangers. They're just friends you haven't met yet." This is by far my favorite life lesson my dad taught me. You see, he lived this and believed it to his core. And once you became friends, well, you were friends for life. He was also very passionate about connecting people and making sure they became friends. He loved doing this, whether it was starting the pancake breakfast and family mass at Mater Dei, the UD football weekends, a shindig at his house, or let us not forget about the infamous St. Patrick's Day parties. Whether you called him Jake, John, Mr. O'Connor, Mr. O, Uncle, Grandpa, or Dad, guaranteed you also called him friend. I know I did. My mom and dad were our number one fans in life. They taught us so much, except how to live without them. I love and miss you beyond words. Please keep watching out for us from the bleachers in the sky. Until we see you again, I love you.